I've learned to trust my intuition, to trust my gut feeling, to trust that like I know who I am, and that's okay, that it's not this like other thing that I think it should be.
No.
And it's also okay to explore, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to like be like, oh, I tried that and it was really bad. It was really bad and it worked so well for that person, but for me it's just not, it's not me.
I'm Jai.
I'm Kara.
I'm Morgan.
And this is the Metamorphosis podcast, a limited series podcast talking about content creation, mindset, and creativity. And today we've got Morgan here with us.
Yeah, I have Morgan in Frames Photography.
And we're going to find out all the goss.
All the juicy details.
All the dirt.
Juicy.
All the things you haven't shared anywhere else
just
before.
Big secrets.
Yeah.
I'm exposing everyone.
Well, don't expose us.
I'm
Jeez,
here
we
to
went there
ruin
quick.
everyone. No.
So just the theme of today, we're going to talk a lot about like creative limits. And so when we talk about limits, we're talking about two types of limits. So limits and challenges. So we have challenges that we impose on ourselves so we can like creatively grow. And we also have challenges that come up all the time in our life and in just like in our environment, you know. So I think it would be good to sort of
those external and internal challenges that we're setting. Tell us a little bit about you. Like I've hung out with you, but I feel like I don't know you, which is exciting.
Wait, don't you guys only live like 10 minutes away?
We do.
But every time I see you, I always see you guys together.
It's only when you're here. We
have to
We're
fly
change
somebody
that.
in from a different
country to connect the dots.
That's kind of
for
our
like
thing.
our 10 minutes to come together.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh hey! Literally every time I see Kara, it's with you. So that's really funny. I love so tell me about yourself. I'm like,
just an open question
well,
into the void.
Into the void I shall speak.
You're just floating around in space right now.
I'm like, wow, who am I? Yeah, no, I don't even, I feel like answering that question is so funny. I'm like, I'm Morgan.
Yeah, I know.
Hi.
Well, that's my name.
I'm a photographer, obviously. Have been doing it for like 10 years.
10? That's a long time.
Yeah, I was 19 when I started.
Really?
When I like got my business license.
Wow.
How'd you get into it?
Are you 20 now?
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, nice.
I know, I just exposed my age. I'm like, ah! Yeah, 30 is like next month, so
Wow.
yikes. But did you ask how I got started?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So it's a really funny way, actually. My grandfather was a truck driver, and he shot film everywhere.
Cool.
They used to like live in Alaska. They did a bunch of like, they just traveled a ton, and he would shoot film everywhere he went. And it was just always like the hobby. He always had like boxes of old cameras in the like glass china cabinets, and my grandma was always like, take these cameras out. But we would play with them. We would take them out and pretend to photograph each other, me and my sisters and my other siblings. And I just fell in love with like looking at the film and seeing how it was all, you know, a story. It was a story of like these people that I knew, but I didn't know them when they were taking those photos. And it's something that had always stuck with me. I've always been a very creative individual. And then I went to school for something completely different.
Of course.
Hated it. It was miserable.
What did you study?
Molecular and cellular biology.
Oh, yeah.
With an emphasis in pre-med.
Gross.
No. Yeah, no. I wanted to be a gynecologist. So
Wow.
I tell people that and they're like, wow. And I'm like, no. It's good. So yeah, I went to that, hated school. I was always been really good at school, and then got to college and was like, so I've just been having to do this, and now I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I made some decisions and was not very good at school, and then was like, I just need to be creative. And picked up, my mom had got me a camera for Christmas, and I just started taking pictures of like my roommates and, you know, friends and family friends, and literally within like a couple years of that, I was full-time.
Wow.
Yeah, I found
Straight
like the
into it.
Utah people really early on, and kind of they took me under their wing and showed me the ropes and had a studio and did all these things, and it was wild. So it really kind of fell into my lap. I didn't ever think of this as a career.
Have you seen any similarities between your work and your grandpa's?
You know, that's so funny. He did a lot of like landscape and less people.
Yeah.
I have to connect with something.
You're all about
and
people.
So landscape is not, but we definitely have like a similar like composition, I would say, because that's all I grew up looking at. Cool. So it was really cool. Yeah, I've had that for years, and I have some of his cameras now that he's gone. But
so he was shooting film. Do you ever shoot film?
You know, I used to. And then I just kind of stopped because it was like, oh, digital's so much easier.
Mm.
Yeah.
But then I've always had such a love for film and the trueness of film. There's
Yeah.
not like 3 pictures of like the same in a row where you're like, that one's slightly different. You have to be really intentional with it. So I think I'd love to bring it back in. I just need to practice.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, wouldn't you?
Has-
I was like film queen over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Ha-
not.
Have you seen, like in the last 10 years, your style develop and change a lot? Like, do you change it like yearly, monthly,
Yeah, I got to
daily,
know that. Yeah.
hourly?
That's, you know, I feel like it has changed, but I look at my work from years ago and I'm like, I'm just still kind of the same person. I feel like I've
Interesting.
always made
That's
it a
beautiful.
goal to create from like where I'm at in life. So I think that as I've changed as a person, my style has kind of evolved with that. But you look back like at my work from 9 years ago and you're like, oh, it's
Wow.
actually, the tones are similar and there's like things that I see where I'm like, oh, it's so bad. But then I'm like, no, there's these foundations of my style that's always been there.
Ooh, I love that.
And it's just like evolved.
the
and
building
gotten
blocks
better.
of you have been
Yeah.
fundamentally the same even from the beginning.
Mhm.
What would you say those are? Like, what are kind of like core things where it's like,
gosh.
okay, this is a Morgan photo?
You know, I am somebody who really likes to, I feel like I've always been a little bit more on like the bold side of things.
Yes.
I'm very,
In everything, even how you dress,
yes,
how you are.
I'm very,
yeah.
I'm like outwardly, hey,
I
I
love
like to be showy. But it's weird because I'm actually like such an internal person. Like I am just like, I like my space. I like the quiet things. Like I'm really comfortable in social settings, but if I'm by myself, I'm like, this
You're
is
good.
where I thrive.
You recharge, yeah.
So I think I bring that into my work where it's like I'm able to create these like big moments of like, oh, this is stunning, like this is the photo. But then my storytelling is a little bit on the quieter side. It's not as like cinematic as some other people or, you know, what have you. It's more, here's a big moment and then there's smaller moments in between, and I just feel like that's who I am. So it's kind of comes through that way in a different way. I've always felt like my storytelling was different. And I was like, why can't I do all these things that are cinematic and beautiful and amazing and these big stories? And I'm like, oh, because I tell my stories differently.
Yeah.
Have you
it's
ever
just me.
like tried to like replicate or imitate somebody else's work, and you're like, man, this is the style, I love this, and it just doesn't work for you?
Yes,
Yeah.
We've all done that,
100%.
yeah.
If somebody says they haven't done that, I think they're lying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I especially like being here in Utah and basically growing up in this community. It's been a decade of, and I think such a crucial decade of your 20s and being so impressionable and being inspired and like separating the inspiration from copying to, you know, find success. And I think that's why I've been successful in what I do. Is there's been times where big people here, I'm like, oh, I can make it look just like them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll edit and I'm like, this looks just like somebody that I look up to, but it doesn't feel right. And I would never like deliver it because I don't feel like it's the way that they came to me to be seen. It's the way that I feel like I should be seen for people to like take me seriously sometimes.
Can you
Does
dive into
make
that a
sense?
little
Yeah.
deeper? Like that feeling. How do you even quantify that? We've been talking a lot
It's a
about
lot.
this, like
Yeah.
following your gut and
Yeah.
knowing when something feels right.
Yeah, I think in this last decade, coming up on 30, I've been really reflective of my 20s. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
It's a big
Good time.
milestone.
So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to have this conversation right now, but the feeling is so, I think, inward. Like I have to be true to myself and learning that my intuition has never been wrong.
That is huge.
Ever. There's been times where I've gone against it, even in like the smallest of ways, and it always comes back and I'm like,
Just didn't work.
I should have listened.
Shoulda known.
I should have listened. It's like every time I've learned to trust my intuition, to trust my gut feeling, to trust that like I know who I am, and that's okay. That it's not this like other thing that I think it should be.
No.
And it's also okay to explore, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to like be like, oh, I tried that and it was really bad. It was really bad, and it
Yeah.
worked so well for that person, but for me, it's just not.
It
It's
wasn't.
not me.
It's not good.
Well,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's a lot about what this course is about, actually. It's just this evolution of self, but also just recognizing that we show up in every phase a little differently, whether it's reflective or it's, you know, you're in that flow state. But I love
hustle state.
the hustle state. I love hearing, though, that from the beginning, there's been these like core building blocks that have been you that just keep showing up consistently over time.
Yeah.
Because that even happens in Metamorphosis. When a caterpillar is getting ready to digest itself and go into the chrysalis, there's little cells that are untouchable that eventually are what help it become a butterfly. And so I'm seeing you now, though, and I feel like you are this beautiful butterfly.
Aww.
Like you're very warm, and you show up and you're real, and I find that very refreshing.
It's taken me a long time to get here.
Yeah.
You know, you go through I need to be this and I need to be that, but you fall back on the things that have always been you, and it's been foolproof.
Ooh, you fall back on the things that have always been you.
That's where cool. I stay. I'm like, that she's always there.
Yeah.
She allows me to go out and explore, but she's always there. And I
love that.
Just to learn to listen to that more.
Throughout your career, your creative career, have you ever purposely put limits on yourself or challenged yourself in any way that stands out to you that really helped you grow?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's small things that I do even now every day where it's, challenges of I'm getting a little routine. I'm going into season right now. I'm getting ready to go into this crazy season, but I've limited myself this year to less work. And that's been really hard for me because I am I can do that. I can be there. I can fly out that night and be there the next day. And from a different, I was that person for so long that burnout was just my normal. And I had normalized it so much that I was like, this is just what it feels like to be successful. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm doing great. And in all reality, I'm that dog meme in the fire where I'm just
this is fine.
I'm fine. Yeah. And you see that come, I think that I normalized it for so long because there was not a lot for me on the other end of a personal life where I wanted it to thrive. And so it was I'm fine, I can do this, I can work. And now that I have such a healthy personal life, relationships and people that I want to spend time with and friendships and relationships that I want to invest in, and my family even spending more time with them, it's it means more now, I think, to set those limits. So I've been able to kind of create that balance. So limit-wise, I'm limiting myself to realizing that it's okay to take a step back.
And how's that affecting your work?
It's actually really great. I think that
it makes sense.
It's really intentional. I wouldn't say picky with the people that I took on this year, but maybe just intentional.
Yeah, intentional.
I got to know each couple very well, and I travel a lot for work, so doing that sometimes is really hard. But I took the time to do that, and every single wedding I have this year could not be more different from the one I'm shooting the weekend before.
Interesting.
It's amazing. They are all so different. And I realized that my style and who I want to be within my work is not dictated by a certain aesthetic or a certain, something outward. It's oh no, it's just the people. And so I think that this year I'm really looking forward to creating from feeling versus overthinking. I have to do the same wedding again, and I'm shooting at this venue again, and I'm doing this again. I'm not in that mindset at all. It's more so I get to tell these people's stories. Yeah. And I've tried, obviously that's been an important thing in my business in previous years, but this year it's the forefront. It's the drive behind it, where I don't feel there's any sort of scarcity mindset of having to do more. I just get to be where I'm at and create from that. And there's something in that where I don't think I've given myself full permission to be here until this year, which is really interesting.
What do you think shifted?
9 years.
Yeah, 9 years. Was it just being in that healthier place with your personal life? Is that...
Yeah, I think we had some priorities shift a lot this last year. I was so tired. And, even relationship was great, everything was great, but there were, some things that we had encountered with, we were trying to start a family and that didn't work. We lost a pregnancy, and so...
I didn't know that.
It's okay. And that really changed, my energy.
I believe it.
And I think I just, came to this point where I'm there's just so many things that matter more. And I need to slow down and allow that energy to be, because as soon as I found out, I was oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reschedule this wedding, and girl, that's not where we should be. That's not where we should be. We've worked so hard to build this business to be this dream thing where I get to dictate what I do, and I shouldn't be in this energy. So I took a step back, and now it's thriving. It's just flowing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, you kind of found your flow a little bit more. Hey, so it's you're swimming with the current instead of against the current all the time, where you're just hustling, but it's not really turning into anything for you except maybe burnout.
Yeah.
That's
and
really
it
cool.
just took me a long time to get there. So I'm really excited to see what this year is and to see how it changes in the small things and the big things, and see how my work changes. I think my work is at a place where it might feel a little different moving forward because I'm just different, and it's fun. It's exciting. Like I'm excited to kind of be in this place of like uncomfortability.
Yeah.
And be a little like, I don't really know. This could work out. It could not. Who knows? But
can I actually ask you a question on something that you were just talking about
Absolutely.
before? You talked about how like your work really is inward and it's you, not so much outward and the subject in front of you. And so in the course I talk about like niching down, and a lot of people talk about niching down, having a perfect client. And I talk about how like if you niche down and have a perfect client, what happens is you end up with a box and shooting the same people over and over and over. And there is no variety in like the work that you actually create, and then there's no magic because you kind of know the same thing. So it kind of sounds like you've taken on the philosophy of like, well, it's not really to do with them, it's more to do with am I the perfect person, you know, for them to create that work. So do you feel like for you it's less about finding the perfect client and more about finding your perfect style and perfect voice to give to anyone?
Yeah, I think that we have this like skewed perspective of exactly what you just said. It's like this perfect client, this is what they look like, this is how old they are, this is what they, and I think a lot of like marketing things that I've seen teach that, and it's just never resonated with me because there have been times where people come to me and I'm like, I'm not the person for them. And they come to me with a huge budget and it would be like this big thing, and I'm like, it's just, I would be doing them a disservice because I don't understand them the way that they need to be understood, and they're not going to understand me, and there's going to be a disconnect. And I would never want somebody to look back at their wedding photos 10 years from now and be like, yeah, I mean, it was great. I guess their photos, that would shatter me. So my clients who look back on their photos 10 years from now, I want them to be like, oh, I remember this photo because she knew that this was important to me, and this, you know, like there's still like some sort of connection there. So I think exactly like if I can be as honest and open and true with my voice and who I am, it will attract the people who understand that, and we'll get each other. So then it becomes like this collaborative thing, and we're both just in the same, like in this great place of being able to create that it is the most honest version that it could be, because I'm showing up 100%, they're showing up 100%, and we're able to just create together instead of being like, oh, you're just here to take my photos.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Do you have any stories of like some time where you just really felt like I'm showing up full force, this is me, and you found somebody that you really connected with that saw that? Oh my
gosh. Yeah, there's been a lot, especially this last year. I'm like, you asked that and it was like, bing, 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 all these people. There was this one couple in particular, this was 2017, so this was a while ago, and I think it was one of the first times that I allowed myself to be like, I'm just gonna do things a little differently, and I'm not gonna show up and be like, okay, I need to do this. It was like, I'm just gonna observe and let it unfold, and I was so scared.
Wow.
I was so scared. I had no idea what to expect with this wedding. She was very small in the details. This is where it's at. This is kind of what we're doing. I had no idea what I was walking into. And so I am driving out into the middle of nowhere in Temecula, and I get there and I'm like, is this a farm? Like, where are we? I have no idea. And I get out of the car and I walk in, and as soon as I walk in, it was just like this, like, whoa, this is some good energy. And she came out, she gave me this big hug, and I was like, it's really nice to meet you. We hadn't met until then. And they have stuck with me forever. I love this couple because they just fully trusted me.
That's huge.
To do what I needed to do. And I like I said, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And walking into it, and as it happened, it was just the most creative I had allowed myself to be. And that was a really turn point for me, like, to start bringing that energy into my work. And it was just the best, one of my favorite weddings I've ever photographed still to this day.
Can I ask, like, when you say that you got more creative because you felt like they trust you more, what does that look like? Like, how do you bring that creativity into your actual work?
It was, I think that because they had such a trust in the work that they saw in me, and they communicated that, and it was the first time where I was like, oh, I need to communicate differently with my clients leading up to their wedding day. And so it was kind of that, I mean, this was like the first time I'd even like dipped a toe in. So these things I'm like realizing after I had left the wedding, like, oh, I gotta do things differently. I gotta do it different. But they were so open to anything. Like, there was no timeline. There was no anything that had to be done. It was like, if you see it and that's what you want, like, so really I owe it to them, to that, truly, like, they so openly gave me permission to do that I hadn't given myself.
That's an interesting
That's
thing.
cool. So
That-
it was the
yeah.
permission that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's so relatable though,
Yeah.
because I've felt that multiple times shooting weddings where for whatever reason it's almost like I feel like I'm not giving myself the permission to do what I actually want to do, which is strange. I don't know where that disconnect comes from. Like we're questioning whether or not they fully trust us or we don't trust ourselves. But that changes everything, that shift of just like, okay, I'm going to own this, I'm going to do it.
I think it's less like a shot list and more just like, these are the shots that I,
This is what creating.
because I used to get emails of like, the bride putting on a dress, the bride, and I'm like, and part of me is like, well, yeah, like, no shit. But like, it almost like conditioned me to be like, these are all the shots I need to get in every single wedding. It was routine. And it was the first time that I didn't have a routine.
Yeah.
And for me,
Well,
that's really hard.
is it hard?
Yes.
You know, what I'm hearing though is that this is all coming back to that inner knowing and intuition that you've mentioned even with shooting. When you trust yourself and you find that I can trust that I know what to get, what to capture, what to look for, that changes everything.
Yeah, it really did. It was like one of the best moments in my career.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you ever put in like any little challenges for yourself when you're actually shooting? So like an example of this is, I was saying to you not too long ago, where I shoot like really wide, and I love like really wide photos, so I can like get into people's faces. I love like getting in there, because that's like the opposite to me, because I'm an introvert, so it like gives me permission to like extrovert myself. So everyone was telling me like, you need to shoot an 85, it's the best lens. And so I shot a whole wedding where I only used the 85, and I just
An entire wedding with
I
85.
hated it.
He hated it.
I
a
hated
lot.
that lens.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm like
it was like
panicking thinking
yeah,
about
I
it.
know, literally. But I just wanted to push myself. But it was
Yeah.
cool because it's like it helps you grow creatively, but also it like shows you what you like and what you don't like with your style. So, is there anything that you've done or tried?
Yeah. I think lighting has become. I was really comfortable for a long time just doing like a natural light photography. What does that even mean?
It means we don't know how to use light.
We don't know how to use anything else. So just make sure you get married at golden hour. And as soon as it's dark, I'm out. Yeah. So I've really found a love for flash and artificial lighting.
Yeah, you're known for that, I feel like. Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, I love it. That and like I really it sounds so funny, and every time I say it out loud, I think of Anchorman, where he's like, I love lamp. But like lamp lighting is like my favorite thing in the entire world. Where I've like been like, should I just start taking lamps to weddings? Like
Probably.
me and my lamp just walking into a wedding.
Please do.
I'll like draw a little face on it. I'm like, perfect. But like lighting, I've been like, okay, so if I'm shooting these details, this is like the great place to do it. It's full sun, it's beautiful, whatever. And then I will take those and break them down and put it in like a weird bathroom, or doing stuff where it doesn't necessarily feel like I don't feel fully like maybe confident doing it, but I trust myself enough to know that if I just take a step back and allow myself to be creative, it might not turn out, but I got the one that looks good, and it could look like shit, but most of the time it doesn't. So I mean, I'm like,
I love that.
there's that. Yeah, so there's that, and then I've kind of been bringing like a more of a second shooter into my work.
Okay.
So that I can take a minute to like do details while they're doing, like I've trusted other people to kind of come in and allow to be creative in my space, which is really hard for me. So
You're learning to surrender.
And learning that I don't have to be
buzzword.
like on in this like version of myself that I think needs to be at a wedding or any kind of shoot. And just taking a minute to be like, and even speaking it outwardly, hey guys, I want to try something, and it might be really dumb, and it might not work, but it could be the coolest thing we've ever done. Are you guys cool with that? Just speaking out a fear and letting it come to this voice and being like, oh, it's not as scary as I thought, because they're so down or they're so trusting. And sometimes it's not the greatest thing, and I'll literally be like, oh, I was wrong. That's really dumb. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And so I just like have been speaking it outward so that I don't feel like I have to be this like, oh yeah, it's perfect, it's great, and I'm trying something that's not working. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna know that it's so bad.
How will they know?
Yeah, literally. So there's just like little things I think that I've changed like that have really like been challenging for me.
But do they give you like a lot of growth? And especially for your style?
Yeah. I think so. I think I've like really grown into getting out of the wedding day routine and just almost being like an observer, and then it's like I want to be documentary, I want to take that full back seat, but I can't. That's just not who I am.
And that's okay.
So there's like moments where I create the big moments, and then I'm like, okay, we can take 5 minutes to just let it happen, and I'm just gonna find things within it, and those 5 minutes turn into 10 minutes, and those 10 minutes turn into 15, and it's kind of allowing myself more space to do that. So I think that that's been a huge growth for me in the way that my brain works. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I love that. Do you have any, I feel like you are full of funny and wild stories.
Oh boy.
So I would love to know, are there any times where maybe challenges came up that you just you couldn't have anticipated this happening? Like external ones where.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what did you do? We want to know.
Yeah. I mean, I have shot everything. I feel like there's been a story. I have a story for everything.
We want to know them.
One of my favorites is I felt like a kindergarten teacher.
Okay.
Like rallying the troops to be like, all right, guys, pull it together. But I had to use like a teacher voice because right before the wedding, now this was like a big wedding. The bride was so excited. She was like, it's my dream. And the entire wedding party took Molly right before the ceremony.
Oh, no.
And I literally was like,
Next minute.
okay, like, all right, Morgan, like, you got a challenge. And I had to, these were like big people, like big men, and really like loud. Everyone was drinking with it. It was a shit show. And
Wow.
my priority is to always make sure that it, like, my couple feels like we've got it.
Yeah.
And she
And
was
did you
just
have
like,
it?
oh, I had it. I had it. I was like, all right.
Everyone's
And
eyes
I
are
got
rolling
it.
back.
Everyone is literally, there are people who are like this big. I'm editing, I'm like trying to make them smaller. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. But walking down the aisle was really hard. I had to like stand at the top and be like, I felt like one of those plane conductors. It's like,
Keep
okay.
walking.
And it was like halfway through, they were like, and swaying, and I'd be like, woo, like trying to, I looked crazy. I looked like just the worst preschool teacher ever. But like just stuff like that where it's like you have to adapt to sometimes like that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to be in control of that. And
You have to be able to show
you know,
up.
some things are out of my control, but just being confident in the energy and bringing and making sure my priorities are straight with like, I just want to keep it going and flowing. And I would have walked one of them back down and been like, you're done, go sit over there if I had to. I don't care. I'm very forward. So I think that helps a lot of those kinds of challenges. I've had, you know, you have like split pants and I'm back there like sewing them right before. Like I've had a bride catch on fire and we had to like,
What?
yeah, it was not good. So we had to like pin the dress and like I've been a tailor, I've been a hair and makeup artist, I've been I've taken my own like belts off and giving them to like other people. I've switched shoes. I had socks on and somebody didn't at this like wedding in Mexico and he was like, my feet hurt so bad. Took my socks off. I was like, here you go. And I got a video later that night of them just like clicking their feet together and be like, socks forever. Like they were just drunk. So like there's so many things where I feel like I'm very much the person who steps up to take in that control. So I have a lot of funny stories, but they always work out. So
do you ever feel like when one of these challenges come up, are you ever like, you know, okay, I see the challenge accepted, I'm gonna go for it, and we're just gonna make this work? Or is there any time where you just like start going like, well, I wish this didn't happen, or like I start blaming other people, or just like, yeah, tell me about that dynamic.
I have had to learn because I was somebody who would take it all on. Like I got it, it's me, I'm fine. And then by the you know reception, my cup is empty and there's nothing, and I feel like I'm not showing up to perform the way I should because I had to take care of everyone else.
Yeah.
So I think like I've learned to kind of step back, not my monkeys, not my circus, and hope that people who are in charge of their areas step up. And I think I'm very forward with my communication. I've learned really big communication skills in this job, and you know being able to go up to somebody and be like, hey, I really need you to do this because I need to stay in my lane a little bit and focus on what my priorities are, and I need you to show up and do this because I don't think that that's happening. And it's not confrontational. I think confrontation has such a negative context, but I'm able to step up and be like, hey. So I think like direct communication has been a thing that I've learned from that, and able to apply it now where the challenges feel less fully on my shoulders and more like able to delegate, because some people just don't do well with that, and being able to step up and be like, hey,
That's what most people don't do well.
Yeah.
Under
So.
pressure or challenges.
So I think that's been a big thing where, because some challenges I just don't want to deal with. Some things are not my business to deal with, and I've learned that I need to sometimes stay in my own.
It's an interesting dance, knowing when to insert yourself, when to take a step back. I feel like that's the the plight of the wedding photographer most of the time. Yeah, it's interesting.
We wear many hats.
Yeah, I've even been finding that I don't enjoy shooting elopements as much as I used to, because I was feeling like I'm really present and like they're making a lot of decisions, and I'm kind of enjoying more of that like 15 to 30 space where I really can just be observant and a fly on the wall and like see what's going on. Yeah.
I don't thrive at elopements.
Interesting.
At all.
Yeah.
Because of that, I need more people. I need it to be.
That's interesting. Yeah. Whereas sometimes I love them, so I don't know what the difference is. Maybe it's just connection. Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any other crazy stories though? Like anything that happened that was just so wildly out of your control, and then you were able to make it better than you thought?
Did you ever get too drunk at a wedding?
Like, well.
You know, yeah, I did. Unfortunately, it was one time. It's only ever been one wedding, and thankful for that couple. Thankful for that couple. They were just a party couple. I had literally like just had surgery, and I had to go. I had my gallbladder out. It was like this stupid thing, and then I had to go shoot a wedding in Barbados like 11 days later. So I'm like, ugh, I can't function. Well, they didn't tell you like in the beginning when your body starts to learn like alcohol hits you differently.
Yeah. So
I'm in Barbados on this beach with this couple. They were from London. They came in with all of their friends, and it was like, here, you have to drink. Like you have to. They were very pushy. I was like, oh, I don't know. And they were like, no, it's really offensive if you don't. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna offend anyone. And we had not really. You don't eat on a wedding day. No, you don't really like have time to like eat. And so I had these drinks, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not eating anything. My stomach. I'm like, this is bad. This is not a good situation. And I kind of was aware of it before it hit. I was like, gotta prep. And I had a second shooter with me, thank goodness, because I couldn't travel by myself with everything. And I like looked at them, and I was like, I think I'm gonna be very drunk in a minute. They were like, okay, what do you need me to do? And I literally had to go like sit on a couch in the corner for a minute while speeches were happening and be like grounding, like trying to breathe. I'm laughing so hard because I'm literally like I don't drink a lot, so it's just, it was wild. And then I got up, I was like, I'm gonna fall over, but we're gonna like put the mask on. And I finished it, and it was the time of my life. It was so hard.
How were the photos? Just wondering.
They were great.
Great.
They were fantastic. They were actually,
like,
they were like, some of them were a little blurry.
It's all her feet.
It's just my feet. I'm just in all of them somehow. I'm like, selfies with everyone. Yeah, but we rallied and we did it. And I got back to the hotel, and I was like, that was probably not my best moment. But then they were like texting us, being like, come to the after party. They didn't care. So it was really funny. And texted them the next day. I was like, hey, I usually don't drink at weddings. I'm really sorry. And they were like, oh, I'm so glad you did. Like, you were so great. So it was fine. I would never let myself get fully out of control, but it was definitely a moment where I was like, whoa, this is going to be challenging. And it's my fault. So gotta just make it happen.
Has anything ever happened to you, Kara? Have you ever done something wild like that?
You ever been really drunk at a wedding, Kara?
No.
No.
So boring.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I think the craziest thing that ever happened to me was just shooting.
You drank too much water and got too
I
hydrated.
was so hydrated.
So hydrated.
I was mad hydrated.
Oh my
that
gosh.
was crazy.
That was insane.
That's the story. No, nothing too crazy. I was in Hawaii on a dock once, and I slipped on some algae, and I had like 5 cameras on me. Like I had the double like camera strap and then like 3 film cameras. Slipped off and fell right into the ocean.
Oh.
Like, was it deep?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Were you like,
well, actually, I was kind of on the rocks, which
Okay.
was really painful. And then the waves came. Yeah, and it was one of those who were like, how do we help? You know, and I'm like, save the cameras. They're just like,
please.
take the
Just
cameras.
Did you lose everything?
No, I didn't lose any photos. I did break one lens. But everything else was fine.
That's not
So
too bad
I'll
then.
take it. And I didn't have insurance at the time because this was when I was
So
first starting
did
out.
your cameras go underwater?
They kind of just a quick little baptism, you know, just a little dunk.
Like
You know,
christening, if you will.
this is
A little
like-
christening.
This is a pretty funny story, but I
That's so
actually dunked one of my cameras once into salt water.
Really?
And then I got out my hose and just like washed out all the salt water because I knew it was going to corrode, and I
Yeah.
let it sit there. And it worked forever. My whole career is with this one camera, pretty
And it
much.
worked fine.
Yeah,
Wow.
it never missed a beat.
It like
And I
barely rains
literally
outside, and I'm like,
saturated it.
I've learned to not trust myself around bodies of water anymore. And in Greece, I
Mhm.
broke 2 of my cameras recently. Yeah, and it was like it was a double thing where I think I was calling out to someone like, "Oh, watch me fall," and then I did, like right after saying it. And that camera's
That's
broken forever,
incredible.
so that's cool.
That's-
Expensive life lessons, but
So is that why
Insurance.
you've got a shitty camera now?
he
Not
thinks I have a
shitty
shitty camera.
Do you have a shitty camera?
I don't know, it's just like the Mark IV. I probably should upgrade a bit.
I love a Mark IV.
I still like
love
it.
my Mark
I love
IV.
it for astrophotography because I find that the new mirrorless
Yeah.
ones don't focus as well on the stars.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm having a harder time with that, but I'll upgrade eventually.
No, you don't need an upgrade. But I walked past. It's in a lounge room, and I don't know why, but I think it's got like an old lens on or something. And I thought it was just like an old Rebel T5 or something like that. And I was like, oh, look at that old thing. And then I was like, are you gonna bring that old shitty camera to
And I
the
was
shoot?
like, well,
And she's
considering
like-
that's my main camera,
Yeah.
yes, I will be.
That's my
removed.
only camera.
No, I have multiple cameras.
That's amazing.
Anybody
Yeah.
listening is like not hiring her.
You're like, please, I'm
She
really
has good
good.
gear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chai. But pulling all this back, just back to
Oh,
creativity.
back to the interview.
Yeah,
Oh,
back
yeah.
to-
Right,
yeah,
right.
back to where
Before
we
we
are.
get too
Rein it
crazy.
back in.
Too
Reining it
hydrated in here. Yeah.
So hydrated. With creativity in general, I would
Uh-huh.
love to know, how does that feel for you? Like, what does that look like? What is creativity to you, actually?
That's a good question. I feel like I spent a lot of my life thinking I had to like, oh, they're so creative and I'm not like that. Creativity to me is I don't feel like it comes super naturally to me.
Talk to me more about that.
I don't feel like I'm somebody who like, I don't know, I have so many friends in this industry and they wake up and they're like, the morning light on a cup, and I'm like, I just need like, don't wake me up. I'm good. Like,
Let me get back to sleep.
I don't really see, like, I don't know, maybe I'm not as, like, romanticized. I feel like creativity always has to be this, like, romanticized thing. And, like, there are things where I'll, like, drive and, like, oh, that light's really pretty, but I'm not, like, wow. And, like, it doesn't hit me the same. I don't know. I think for me, creativity is, like, so, almost, like, I don't know. It's so hard to define what it is.
It is, yeah.
Because for me, I feel like it's more of this, like, little thing that sits on my shoulder and
I love that.
sometimes is like, hey, look at that thing. And I'm like, wow, that's sick, Like, but I guess it hits at different times. It's not something that is an everyday all the time. And I'm
So
very...
sometimes you just like feel uninspired as well, and you just get
Yes.
to work, and then afterwards you look at your work and go, actually that's really good. I really like it.
I've learned to, like, be okay with not feeling like, I'm amazing and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so
Like the
inspired
clouds
at
just
every single
parted
thing
and
and,
the-
like, the sky opens and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
Rays
Because I
of light are
think...
coming down.
Literally.
I'm having a
A
Jesus
rainbow
moment.
and, like floating into the sky.
You start lifting and gravitating, and with your
That
camera.
only happens once in a while. I know. I'm sorry.
Every
Me and
other
my shitty cameras just
Yeah.
up into the sky. But no, I think like
But the rest of the time
the
is
rest of the time is like having to find creativity while I'm working.
okay.
That's
That's
relatable.
hard. That's
Yeah.
hard sometimes. Yeah. So I don't know. I think creativity for me is not something. I'm very creative in like one aspect of life. I'm not
What
like
aspect
Yeah,
is
what do
that?
you mean?
like I feel like I'm only like creative like in the photography world. I can't like
Okay.
draw. I don't find like any joy in like painting or doing anything else that feels. I guess I danced growing up, but
I
Yeah.
I hear you, but
Yeah.
I also want to disagree with you just a little.
Oh.
Ooh,
Please.
Okay,
I do.
this is. I'm gonna.
fight night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, you don't even
Whoa.
know me.
Okay.
Kara and I just start fighting
Yeah.
for the rest of it.
The interview's actually
cut
over.
out.
And I'm just sitting by myself.
The camera just
15
falls.
minutes
and
in.
it's just That's like yay.
This
No.
went perfectly.
Here's what I wanted to say though. I think that sometimes when we think about creativity, we're
Yeah.
always thinking like, oh, it's got to be painting, it's got to be
Mhm.
drawing. But when I'm looking at you right now,
Oh.
every aspect of our lives is creativity. It's
Yeah.
the makeup that you put on today. It's
Oh.
the way that you did your nails. It's the rings that you put on. It's how you talk to people.
Mhm.
It's the routines that you have in the morning. It's
Yeah.
it's all of it. I
Yeah.
actually think that life is the creative act. And so
Love.
I just don't want to have you cut yourself
She's
short
like,
though.
stop.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second.
You deserve acknowledgement.
No, that was
for your
cheesy,
creativity.
but like
No, it's not cheesy because it's true. And I think it's just hard for me to, you compare it a lot. Like I compare a lot. So comparing creativity is.
Talk to me about that. Yeah.
She said, "Talk to me about that. Tell me all the things."
No, this is
no,
real.
but
though.
it's true. I think like I run in a circle of very creative people, and I've never felt like it comes easy, in the sense of like everyone else is like so creative. You compare yourself to. I really wish I saw the world the way that they did, and like learning to just be okay with like my own world perception and being like, oh.
Because they're over there thinking the same about you. That's what's weird.
Yeah. I think I've just...
We're all sitting there looking at other people's stuff.
Literally.
Like,
And everyone's like
What
looking
are
at
you
each
doing
other
over there?
and doing all these things. Yeah. It's not a fun game to play. But my mom would say I've always been the person who walks to the beat of their own drum. And my drum is just kind of weird, and it's not as like loud sometimes, and sometimes it's really loud. But I guess that's... No, I'm just kidding. If we put that in here, I'm gonna be really sad.
It's gonna be in there.
Just kidding. But yeah, I like do whatever you want. That's fine. No, it's true. I guess that's something I don't. It's so funny how you learn from other people. Just now, that was like such a learning moment from you to be like, damn it, Kara, you're right. I am creative.
Like, I want you to show up
true.
with your weird creative creature
Yeah.
on your shoulder and your drum and you're just doing your thing. But that's actually, I think, what sets you apart. When I look at your work, I can identify a Morgan photo before I know that it's anyone else's. And that, I think, is a mark of,
Compliments are just-
Yeah, literally, I'm like.
No, but I love
keep
that.
telling
Isn't
me.
what that's all about?
Yeah.
Right?
Stop.
No,
But
thank
the
you.
comparison game is hard. I mean,
It is.
comparison kills creativity, and it's relatable though. I think maybe we can talk about that for a second. That it's really hard to not.
How do you get out of comparison? That's the question.
You know, I think that we've been talking a lot about how creativity in anything that you do is like wearing different hats. And so when you're in your flow state of you're just creating and you're wearing that hat, so to speak, you're not looking at anybody else. You're just doing things that light you up, that feel true to you. The second you're having like that other hat where you're kind of like shifty-eyed and you're kind of like, oh, actually, should I be doing this? Because no one else is. Or, well, they're all over there doing that. Should I be doing that? Or, wow, I'm seeing that this is really
Start
popular,
losing yourself.
but I'm not even good at it. And all of a sudden, that initial you, the one that was just excited about showing up, is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so, yeah, I don't know.
I actually got a belief as
hard.
well that I actually think that you should compare yourself with the best of the best. So I think too many people compare themselves with who's next door. So it's like, oh, people are in my state, so I'm going to look at them, or they're just, it's always a close proximity. And I've always noticed when people do that, they get really stuck because they're trying to do as good as them. But if you compete with the best of the best, there's such a huge gap there. So there's a lot of growth. And
That's
I think
interesting.
that's like a really good way of doing it. And I always do that. I'm like, who's the best?
That's definitely how mine comes through. I think it's almost like people I admire.
Yeah.
And I look up to, and I want to see like a part of myself in their work, and then I'm like, what's not clicking here? And so I've like reached out for mentorships or asked them questions.
I love that.
We're connected, and it's helped
cool.
with not being as like, they're so good, and I'm just over here, and I'm so bad. Like I hate that feeling.
That
So I think it's like
self-deprecating
both.
thing.
It's like this mix of like
This
wanting it to be inspiring and having it all consuming.
I love that. It's making me think of Austin Kleon wrote that little book called Steal Like an Artist, and he says that, find your creative heroes, identify who they are, and then imagine if you had all of your creative heroes sitting in a room with you, and you were brainstorming together, and you came up with a concept together, what would you make? And I think that that's such a beautiful approach, because then you're not just like, well, I love this person, so I'm trying to become them, and I'm stealing all their
totally.
ideas.
Yeah.
When you pull in multiple, that's what's exciting though, because you're like, imagine if I had this person,
Create
this
everything.
director, this painter, and me in a room, what would we come up with? And then you approach it that way, and it's kind of exciting to see what you come up with. Yeah.
That'd be a fun like journal exercise, like draw a table and invite the people to the table and think like what they'd bring and be like, what am I bring? I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, we have that. We actually have that in our self-assessment in
Oh
our
my gosh,
workbook.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I'll
Do you
just
guys
buy
do
the
a good
workbook.
job of comparing yourself to yourself, like your past self? I think I'm really good at that. That's something.
How? What do you
Yeah.
get?
Well, it's just
Tell
like,
us why you're so good at it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I'm so good.
Please.
Okay, so, let me tell you.
Tell me. Educate me.
Well, no, it's interesting because I notice a lot of people don't think like this, so then I always feel like I'm a little bit isolated with this thinking, like people don't resonate with it. But I obsess over just looking at my past self like a year ago, and I like look at everything. And so one example is you watched your talk at the Unrealistic Workshop like not too long ago. And so for me, I wait 12 months because I can't watch it straight away. So I'll wait 12 months.
To watch
It's a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
And then after 12 months, I go past the cringe and I start looking at it from a different perspective. And then I really start breaking it apart, and I go like, okay, so how am I today, and what could I do so much better? Instead of watching everyone else's talk, which I could do, there's like 10 other talks,
Right.
and then like, try and obsess over that. I'm watching myself and going like, how could I
Wow.
be so much better?
Yeah.
And I do that every single time, and I feel like it pushes me
I love that.
forward. And also, you don't feel shit about yourself because, like, you can always do better than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Do you have anything? Do you do that?
Yeah. So I actually have OCD, like
Okay.
actual. Everyone,
How does that manifest?
People will be. That's an interesting question, Karen.
How does it?
How doesn't it? Yeah. But it's, people will be like, oh, I have OCD because I like things. I'm like, no, I think about the same thing over and 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 over, and it never stops. And that's been a really big learning curve too. I've never talked about it. It's something where I've just been like, it's my own little thing and people don't get it, so I'll just keep it in. And
That's your secret.
my therapist is like, you just need to be forward with it. So here I am talking
Wow.
about OCD. But it's a hard pattern of thinking that sometimes is not always able to get out of. So for me, like, comparison can turn into
Oh, you're like
an
obsessively
intrusive,
thinking about it.
like, if you don't do this like this person, or if you are not having this factor in your business like this other person does, you're gonna fail.
Wow.
And it's heavy.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. I feel like why I'm able to talk so about it now is like I've had a lot of skills taught and learned and experienced, and being like,
Yeah, how are
just
you
how it
overcoming
is.
that? Yeah.
I don't know if it's overcoming as much as it is like learning to decipher real from not real.
That's huge.
It's
How?
it's hard.
How do you? Because I feel like
It's not all the time, that's
Okay.
for sure. And I think like the skills are that you learn are so personal to your own experience. OCD is a very wide spectrum of people who have to touch a doorknob 14 times or their family is gonna like there's so many. Mine is not intensely like it is in some ways, which is really interesting because the way that mine manifests the worst is a big part of my job. So
Oh, yeah,
we
expound
can
on
talk
that
about
one.
it.
Yeah.
We can talk about it, but it's coping and it's learning. I think I've learned, okay, is this an intrusive thought? Like, I'm very self-aware. I think self-awareness has been like a big learning factor of that, so it doesn't sit and consume. So I'm able to kind of step back and be like, hold on, because that is not real. That is not a real thought. And sometimes it's very real, and it's going to be real for a few days, and then I come out of it and I'm like, didn't happen, crazy, how that's not real. I knew it. So it's an all the time, every day, different. It depends on, there's not like one specific thing that works, but self-awareness, I think. But mine is, I have contamination OCD,
Okay.
and it's hotel rooms. I'm very fearful of them.
Well, they're gross.
Well, it's to
Yeah,
the
makes
point
sense.
where I've like not been able to like walk into one, and I can't move in
man.
a door frame for like an hour, and I
Really?
can't
What do you
breathe.
see? You just seeing all the little germs.
He's
They're all
like,
coming
what do
at
you
ya?
see? Tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, exposure
They're all
therapy.
just
Yeah.
they're all just cruising along, coming at you.
Yeah, I
Little
mean,
caterpillars.
sometimes I create stories of like what's happened in there and why
no.
it's so dirty. Like it's really hard.
probably
So
all true,
being a traveling photographer,
Yeah.
No, that's actually crippling because
It's crippling.
we spend so much time in weird, lonely hotel rooms.
it's
Yeah.
expensive because
Yeah.
I have to stay at like nicer. Like it's not even like a nice. It's like I've walked into like even like we went to a Four Seasons in Hawaii and I couldn't go in the room.
Yeah.
It's hard. You
Yeah.
know, it's like some of those things where it's all consuming, but learning, I have like a routine that I take with me. I take disposable sheets. I'm cleaning that room top to bottom before I'm even like bringing my luggage in. Like it is, it's a whole thing.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
But
so,
thank you for sharing that. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's vulnerable. But
Thank you.
what I'm loving, I don't love that you have this, that you're dealing with it, obviously, but I
Yeah.
love that this is a major challenge. There's a lot of fear, it's like paralyzing fear even, and you have a choice with that, right? One,
Yeah.
which is to run away and not do it, or say, okay, I'm going to adapt,
Yeah.
and I'm going to create a way that I can make this happen. And isn't that what creative challenges
Yes.
are all about, actually? Ultimately is, okay, this is happening, it's outside of my control, but here's what I can do that's in my control, here's how I can show up. And I think that that's really brave, actually, like
Thank
that you keep going, because traveling is not easy on its own, and adding that as another factor is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Makes it
hard.
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been times where I've like slept in a rental car because I couldn't go in,
Oh
and
my
then I'm getting
gosh.
ready in a car for a wedding. I'm walking and being like, I'm so well rested and ready to take on the day, and then I get in the car and I cry on the way home, and like it's just, it's those things, but it's this power of choice, and I'm gonna just keep choosing.
Keep choosing.
Because that's the only thing ultimately that I can do to overcome it, right?
Is that, what advice would you give to somebody who, not necessarily that they're going through OCD or having it, but that they're feeling fear? Like, fear is a real thing, right?
Fear is a very real thing.
What would be your advice for somebody who's really afraid?
The biggest thing I've learned with fear is confront it.
Confront it.
Acknowledge it. Speak kindly to it. Don't push it away. I think that with fear, we kind of feel like, I'm really scared, but I don't want people to know that I'm scared because there's weakness behind fear, or there's too much vulnerability behind fear, or sometimes fear is not even a real thing, and it's just this thought that you have of like, this could be a thing, and that's very valid as well. That's my case a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it's, anytime I feel fear, I sit with it. If that's journaling, if it's just sitting, sometimes I just like zone out and don't really do anything, and then as soon as I feel like I'm ready, I literally will speak outwardly. I'm really scared of this, like even if I'm by myself, or if I have somebody with me, that's even like better, because then you have somebody to bounce off of. But most of the time I'm by myself, and it's just like, I'm really scared to do this, and then I write down why I feel like I'm scared, and I look at each of those, and I'm like, which of these are a real problem that I'm facing right now, and how can I either solve it or adapt to it to make sure that I don't feel like this is so intense. And a lot of the time when I'm writing that list, it's like, okay, well, that's not a thing, and this isn't really, this is a thought that I had. And it's kind of this process of like, almost, I don't want to say like pushing it away. It's just acknowledging it and talking to it instead of like dismissing it.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I do that, it doesn't go into this little corner that always comes up later. It's just like we coexist. And when I do things that feel scary, that's when it goes away on its own. Maybe not completely, but it's not in this like dark corner of like shame where it's just like gonna come up later.
You're like retraining your brain even how to think about it in a way. That's, I mean, for the last 12 months when I was in PTSD therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, that's basically what it is. You're just taking something that you're feeling, your fears. My therapist would call them stuck points, all the little things that you keep coming back to. So for me, it was, I'm not enough. If somebody really gets to know me, they're going to discover the truth, which is that I'm not enough. And almost every fear or anything that I was doing would come back to that little stuck point. And that's what we did, is writing exercises. First, just writing it out, letting it just flow out of you. Every little ugly thought you've ever had in your head about whatever fear it is that you're feeling, any experience you've had that's negative, you just get it out there on paper. And then you start to really question the why. Okay, why am I feeling this way? Is this true? Is there evidence to prove that it's not true? And then you're slowly retraining it. And what's been exciting for me is, after finishing that therapy 12 months later, going back and doing the same exercises again, I can compare the two, and it's like they were written by two completely different people. And it's not that I don't have that fear still. I do, all the time.
Fear exists, yeah.
I still very much am always afraid that maybe I'm not going to be enough, or maybe somebody will find that I'm incompetent in some way and I'm going to let them down. But I think it's just, I've acknowledged it in a different way, and I feel a little bit more grace for what I've been through, where I'm at now, and I don't know, you just move through that.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah, for you too.
Congratulations.
That's exciting. Thanks.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Congratulations, team.
Cool.
Yay.
Trauma.
Fear, trauma.
Yeah.
Way to process. Go to
Alright, I think
therapy.
we should start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Do you have any last questions or anything, or?
What would you leave with anybody that is just, any advice for creatives in general? What's like your thing? What's your big takeaway?
Ooh. On the spot, it has to be
That's
profound
a big thing.
as
I
well.
know, I'm like, let me pull out.
This is going to
some
be a
sort
reel
of...
on Instagram. It's probably going to get
It's just me being like,
200,000
We're going to have your
views.
drum playing in the background.
Yeah.
Dum, 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 dum,
Yeah, yeah.
dum, dum, dum. I'm like, just do it.
You heard it here, folks.
Just do it. No, I
And
think...
back to you.
I think just
Do it.
trust your intuition, show up as yourself, and somebody might not like it, but who cares? I don't know.
Nice.
I feel like
That's
I'm not
perfect.
profound.
I love it.
That was very profound.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was.
I
Thank you
tried
for
really
being here.
hard.
Thanks for
I
being
thought
here.
about that a lot. So.
It's amazing.
But thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah.
You guys
Thanks
are
for
the-
being here.
You guys are the greatest.
No, you.
No, you.
You're the greatest.
No,
No,
you.
you're good.
Truly.
All right,
honestly.
somebody cut this off.